Hey everyone, Nazori here, and in this video, I am going to go over every single change that I could find during my VRising 1.0 testing. Stunlock was kind enough to give me a copy of the game to test out early so that we could find all the changes and prep a video like this for you on launch. I am sure that there are probably some changes that I did not find that I am missing, but I'm going to go over everything that we did find, and the list is huge. Before I start, if you're seeing this video and asking yourself, what is VRising? The quick rundown is that VRising is a PvP focused, though you can play it purely for PvE, survival game akin to Rust, with the combat systems from Battlerite, essentially. The game is polished incredibly well and is launching out of early access into 1.0 tomorrow, May the 8th, and the game is looking amazing. I highly recommend checking it out if you haven't already. The links to that will be in the description of this video. I also want to make a note before we start on this massive list of changes that I tried to keep everything mostly spoiler free. So anything that I felt was a fun little surprise moment that we came across, I did not include in this video. This is more of a overarching list of changes from early access to 1.0. And with that out of the way, let's begin. Firstly on the list will be the new brutal difficulty. This is one of my favorite changes that they've made for 1.0. There will now be 3 new difficulties servers can be set to: relaxed, standard, and brutal. Relaxed is obviously easier than we were used to in the early access. Standard is essentially the early access difficulty, and brutal is the new hard mode. So in this brutal difficulty, aside from the NPCs doing more damage, the bosses also get a huge bump in difficulty. Each boss is now tuned to a much harder setting. Most will move and shoot faster, as well as feature a new move that typically throws a wrench into the mix for difficulty. Oh, jeez, dude. Yeah, she is a lot tougher. Ah! Not only was I unable to do the bear without being near its level, I also wiped on Quincy. And these bosses are super early in the game. We had to run away from several early on. We weren't able to do them until we got into our Night Stalker gear. The difficulty is really nice. I suspect people are going to be bottlenecked on certain bosses for some time. The first wipe especially is going to be especially unique. Now, having said that, I did not get to every boss. This was partly intentional so I could experience them for the first time on stream, but not only could we not clear the bear underleveled and we wiped on Quincy, but the hardest boss we attempted by far was Maja the Librarian in Dunley. Oh, I'm dead. Okay, she got one. Oh, I'm dead. I'm gonna die. I'm dead. Dude, she keeps throwing her minions on top of me. I'm dead.
Death by 1,000.
Hey, yep, you're in. You're tapped in. Good luck. She took us a good 30 tries to get down, and it was not easy. We barely got it done. Now, I hear from some experienced players that there are bosses on the server that they are unable to beat. So this is going to be a really unique experience. I am super excited for 1.0. This alone will create an entirely new experience that we've not seen yet in VRising, and I'm very excited to see how it all plays out. Aside from the new difficulty, there is a massive amount of changes to progression. Now, instead of each boss giving a spell like we're used to, most bosses now give a spell point, either a T1, a T2, or a T3, and the T3 is being ultimate. These points can be spent to unlock the ability of your choice and can also be refunded at your castle for free. It requires a table that you unlock fairly early on to do the resetting. With this, the player can try to get their intended build way earlier than we're used to. Along with the changes of how we unlock the spells, the progression in which spells we get has also significantly changed. For example, our first ultimate now comes from Nicholas the Fallen instead of Quincy. Quincy also provides an ultimate point, but you get your condemn ultimate point from Nicholas before Quincy. Another example is the Chaos Dash. This no longer is available after killing Clive. It's somewhere later on in the game. Small balance adjustments like this will definitely shake up the early to mid-game metas. While we are on the topic of overall progression, I should also mention that the quests have been reworked slightly. You will notice subtle changes and improvements to the main story quest. So far, every change I noticed, I enjoyed. Another awesome addition that players are going to notice is that gear has been reworked greatly. Once we arrive at the formerly known as Merciless Night Stalker tier of gear, which was obtained pretty early on in Farbane, you will notice that this tier of gear will be split up into 4 types. Each type caters to a specific playstyle, as well as provides a set bonus. Every single merciless tier of gear is now split like this. So for example, when you get to Dunley, you make your Hollow Fall, and then when you go to make your merciless Hollow Fall, that's split up into the 4 tiers of gear. And you can customize or build whichever set suits your class best. Also important to note, these have 2 different set bonuses. A kind of unique set bonus at 2 pieces, and then if you equip 4 pieces, you just get 1 extra point to your gear score, which helps with PvE. So if you're looking for more of a PvP focused build, it might be best to choose 2 of one set and 2 of another set. Another change to note about gear and wearables is that the bags we wear are now changed and simplified. Instead of 4 different types of bags with separate inventory UIs, a single bag is equipped and it simply expands your inventory slots. The bonus that bags used to provide, like immunity to silver coins, can be found on certain bags as we craft higher tier ones. Next, while we're on the topic of inventory, I should mention the new chest system. Early on, players will now unlock several different types of castle storage, chests, and shelves. These specific containers can store items of their type, and the new chest system also comes with a quick stack hotkey by default to E. Now, before you ask, because everyone does, there is no Terraria stacked to nearby chests, but the system is vastly improved. You click a chest, you hit E, your stuff goes in it. It's really nice. Next on the list are 2 new weapon types. One is the bow, which is unlocked super early from killing Keely in the Trapper Camp. The other is a whip, which is unlocked by killing Simon, which is from the Castlevania crossover, who can be tracked around level 80. So the whip is super late game. I will probably go over both of these weapons in a separate short video, but hopefully they make great additions to our weapon lineup. I want to say that using both of them, I absolutely love them. I think I'm going to be using the whip possibly exclusively, but I'll make a separate video going over exactly the ability move sets, useful combos, and things like that. I also want to make a quick side note about the fishing pole. It's small, but this is now unlocked via a new boss, which can be found in Farbane. Also, a side note to this side note about fishing is that more fish can be utilized to feed prisoners, which is a huge bonus to vampires that enjoy hitting the fishing pools around the map. And before we move on from the topic of items, I should mention now there is a 4th tier of jewels for abilities, as well as new passives on each necklace. Our bases also have new advanced versions of each refining machine, target dummies to test our weapons on, and a music player to change the music we have in our base, or make a small playlist of game tracks that will play when we're inside of our base. On top of all of this, a lot of the bosses also unlock a new cosmetic piece of furniture to go into bases. So a lot of additions have been added to castle building, which is really nice. But moving on, since we have a ton of changes to go over here, the crossbow now features a new passive on its auto attack. The crossbow Q and E now give the target a marked status, and when hit with an auto, it is consumed and gives the target extra damage. As a crossbow enjoyer, I am looking very forward to this small change. Also, another tiny note, there's a lot of them in this. Horses are no longer fed with water skins and instead take fiber. And I think that's it for weapons and items. We're going to be moving on to UI changes. This is something you're going to notice immediately. The entire UI has been reworked from ability bars to inventory to map. Each has a new sleek look and as well comes with little features. For example, the map now has a little route line that will actively direct you on a route to your current ping. Overall, it's just mostly an improvement to each UI element. Aside from the UI changes to the map, there have also been physical changes to the world map. Certain roads and entrances to camps have been adjusted, as well as new camps added to the world. Some of the early examples you'll notice is that there's 2 new copper quarries in Farbane to help spread out the copper bottleneck. There is also an exit in the back of the main copper mine, which allows players to escape out the back instead of running straight through teams just arriving. All this will probably help new players not to get stuck searching for copper for hours, which was always a big issue for new players, especially when dealing with aggressive experienced teams early on. All right, this is a massive list. We're almost done. Next up is the Ruins of Morium. This is a new area unlocked on the right side of the map, which features a new open world event called Rifts. This area can be visited as early as level 50s and provides content all the way into the endgame. Through Rifts, players can earn Rift Shards, which unlock unique passives, as well as can be used to purchase artifact weapons from the merchants there. On top of all of this, the area introduces a brand new blood type, Draconian Blood. This blood is likely going to be the best PvE blood type in the game, with its execute power and double bite passive. You can also combo this bite passive with the new passive ability in the shard unlocks to spawn undead every time you bite something. This will make PvE clearing crazy fast. And before moving on from Morium and the rifts, I should mention I'll probably make a whole separate video on this once we dive deeper into it. But rifts will be required to recharge the necklace of power, or one of the necklaces of power, which is obtained from the final bosses. If you're familiar with the game, you'll know the end game comes with shards of power that players usually hold. They have reworked how this works. Basically, the shards are now necklaces. You'll be required to wear them in order to get the buffs that they provide. You will also be required to go do rifts to recharge the necklaces. This will be amplified if you have multiple necklaces. So if a team holds 4 necklaces, they're going to have to bring them all out into the rifts to charge them separately, which is going to be a lot of time spent out in the open world just charging them, let alone likely wearing them just to get the buff that it holds. So this will likely create a really good endgame conflict that players can constantly look for, especially when doing rifts. Okay, now aside from the rift world events, there is also minor events added in the form of cargo caravans. These caravans seemed quite rare, and unfortunately they do not show up on the map. These are more like lucky finds that you find rather than more conflict world events. The caravans can be destroyed and they contain a decent chunk of loot. From some of our experimenting, we noticed a lot of them did contain recipes. Some of them contained 2, although it might have just been the server settings that we were on. The server we were on for testing did have amplified loot, so I'm unsure exactly how much these caravans will provide. Nonetheless, it's a good addition to the world. If I were to put any sort of critique on this, I would love to see an option to put these caravans on the map, as well as make them a lot tankier as to provide a really good conflict point for players. But that's just my personal preference. And the last change on the list are the new cosmetic options. In your inventory menu, you will now see an option to recolor gear or change the cosmetics entirely to a cosmetic transmog, in a sense. Honestly, even just the recolors provides a really awesome way to customize our vampires, and I absolutely love it. But you will be able to take separate types of gear or even just cosmetic types of gear and overlay it over our gear. It's just good customization. I love it. But that is it for my list. I almost definitely missed a few things overall, but this is an absolute monster of an update. The whole game feels extremely polished, and it seems that performance has also improved quite greatly. I really hope that with these changes, the game becomes more of a staple in the survival genre, as it definitely is literally my favorite PvP survival game to date. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and a huge thank you to Stunlock for providing me access to make this video. If you're interested in trying out VRising, I have a link in the description to their Steam page. I highly, highly recommend checking it out. I'll be making a few more in-depth guides coming up for VRising as we explore more deeply some of these systems. And until then, you can find me on Twitch as I stream there almost nightly at twitch.tv/Nazori. But anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe if you enjoyed this content, and we will see you around.